Okay, so let's talk about overtiredness in older babies. This is probably one of my favorite subjects to talk about because I love disavowing parents of myths that they've heard. Whenever parents talk about their baby becoming overtired, and we're talking about strictly 4 months and up, because definitely with newborn babies, overtiredness is a real thing that can happen, and it can be really stressful for the baby, and it's something that you want to avoid. Okay, with older babies, families feel like, oh my God, if they become overtired, they're just gonna explode. Like, I think people visualize their babies as like a bomb, and they're just gonna explode, and it's just like, it's like the end. It's like the end of the world if the baby gets overtired, okay? We're gonna segment babies, older babies, into two categories: sleep-trained babies and non-sleep trained babies. A sleep-trained baby, for baby sleep trainer purposes, my definition, is a baby that can go down flat on their back, completely awake for naps and bedtime, and fall asleep completely on their own with zero help from you or a sleep prep. Okay? And they have to be able to do that for all of their sleep periods. And they're sleep trained because then they are able to put themselves back to sleep when they wake up overnight. Yes, keeping however many feedings your pediatrician says that they need overnight. That is the definition of a sleep trained baby. And then you have non-sleep trained babies. There's nothing wrong with non-sleep trained babies. Think of training wheels on a bike. These are babies that still have training wheels on a bike. Kids can keep training wheels as long as they need. Families can choose to help their children to sleep indefinitely. Some families will keep their kids in their bed until they are in elementary school. Totally fine if that is what you want to do. However, we have these two categories. If your baby does not yet know how to fall asleep independently, you don't really need to worry that much about overtiredness because you're helping them fall asleep anyway. So if you think your baby's kind of getting too tired, then help them fall asleep like you normally do. Any other issues they're experiencing with their sleep are generally not going to be solved by adjusting their schedule. You can be intuitive about their schedule on babysleeptrainer.com. On my website, I have a great blog. I've got schedules for 3, 2, 1 naps, how to go to no naps, all that. You can try to get them on a good schedule. Most of the time, a lot of the issues that they're struggling with come because they don't know how to fall asleep on their own. And because they don't know how to fall asleep on their own, during the day or at bedtime, they wake up overnight, they need your help to get back to sleep. Or maybe they're needing your help to get to sleep, but they've outgrown those training wheels. I remember I took my son and my daughter on a camping trip, not a camping trip, I don't generally go camping. I took them to a wooded area that had a cabin, and my little boy had not learned how to ride a two-wheel bike. I thought, no big deal, everyone else knew how to ride a two-wheel but him. I said, no problem, we're gonna get him training wheels. Okay, it was the first time that I realized how much training wheels slow a kid down. So the rest of us are just trucking along on our bikes, and he's like pedaling away, and he can't go that fast. Those training wheels were holding him back, and I'm like, he needs to learn how to ride a two-wheel bike because this is holding him back, right? So it might be that if you assist your child to sleep and they're taking longer and longer to fall asleep, or you put them down and then they wake up, it's not because they're overtired, it's not because they're overstimulated, it's because they need to learn how to fall asleep on their own. Let's say you are in the middle of sleep training and you are worried that overtiredness is going to happen. This is something that comes up a lot in the families that use my online courses or work with me one-on-one, because we in the baby sleep trainer world, we use a by the clock schedule, which means your baby's getting up at the same time every morning. You're getting them out of the crib at the same time every morning. They may have woken up before that, but you are setting a wake time for your family. They're getting out of the crib. You're starting their day. They may start to show you signs of tiredness. Let's say that your baby is 5 months old and they get out of their crib at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and their first nap needs to start at 8:30. And by 7:45, 8 o'clock, especially early on in the training process, kiddo is like not jazzed to be awake. They're crabby, they're getting irritated, right? Well, if you're using the baby sleep trainer method or any by the clock type of method, you're training them to stay awake until 8:30. And then no matter how short that nap is, assuming they fall asleep, you're keeping them up until their next scheduled nap time. So what happens is younger babies under the age of 7 months typically only take short naps. Sometimes there are babies that are better at it and consistently take longer naps. Many, or even most babies under the age of 7 months will occasionally have longer naps, especially as they approach the 7-month mark. They'll start to have more and more and more longer naps. But for a lot of the time, they're really not taking very long naps. And so parents get into this panic sense where they're like, oh my God, is my baby overtired, really, because they're upset. Here's what we're doing and why a by the clock method is better than using wake times to determine when your child should go to sleep. Overtiredness is not really a thing for babies over the age of 4 or 5 months once you're starting to sleep train them. They're just expressing their frustration at reorganizing their sleep. It's a little bit like how you feel when you are jet lagged. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's pretty unpleasant. But the thing with jet lag is if you allow yourself to sleep when you're not supposed to be sleeping, you're not going to overcome your jet lag. But you can train children, and I've done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. It's really just a matter of keeping a child consistent. You can train a child to stay awake and learn to tolerate longer periods of wakefulness. Where this helps us is that you're not going to have chaos every day, right? Your baby is going to get used to getting up to start their day more or less around the same time. They're going to start to fall into a really distinct pattern of when they're ready to go to bed each night. Those naps, their body is eventually going to tolerate longer periods of wakefulness. They'll be ready to go to sleep more or less around the same times, and guess what? As they get older, they're going to have longer and more consistent naps as well. If you keep using wake times to determine when they nap, you're never going to have a consistent schedule, and more importantly, you're going to have a really hard time limiting the number of times that your baby naps in a day. So for most babies 4 or 5 months or older, if they fall asleep more than 3 times each day, it's going to impact their ability to sleep soundly overnight. Not for all babies, but for many of them. So if that's the situation you're in and you're trying to sleep train your baby and you're letting them fall asleep 4 or 5 times in a day, then they're going to wake up a lot at night, all because you're trying to only keep them awake for these limited, these like limited wake times. So a by the clock schedule is what I have found after so many families to work a lot better. It's just something that families give up on, and you don't want to give up on that because it's really going to bring you a lot more success over time. Thank you so much for sitting here and listening to me discuss all of this information about overtiredness. I decided to make a super detailed video because I wanted to get everything in my mind out about the subject because it comes up so often all the time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell.